Danke. Ciao, Anna Maria. Ciao. Hello, hello. Hi. Welcome.
Oh, they're muted.
Hi. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, let's wait. I will say, let's give it as usual, like 5 minutes, and then we start with a very quick intro, and then we go into the topic.
Cool.
Nice. Cool.
And for this one, if people want to unmute can people do it on their own, Giuseppe?
Yes, but again, really use me as a co-facilitator and IT technician. So whatever thing, I will help you, like to mute it or mute people, no worries.
But people have the option to unmute themselves.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes, they do. They do. Hi, guys. Welcome to the session. Let's wait another 4 minutes and then we start, just to be sure that everyone is on board.
Cool. Just while we're waiting, has anybody, well, I suppose either way, has anybody not used Miro before, or has anybody, does anybody, yeah, let's leave it that way. Has anybody not used Miro before? And you can put like a thumbs down, or you can unmute yourself and ask, because we're going to be using a mixture of Miro and annotation within Zoom on some of these things as well.
Yeah, I think it should be fine. It's very intuitive anyway, so very easy to use. Let's wait a little bit more. Yeah, really like a couple of minutes just to be sure that we are all on board.
Oh, and I forgot to say the link to Miro, this board you're seeing on the screen, is actually in the chat. So you can follow along with it.
Right, let me share it again. No, this is the one of the chat. Let me share the one on Miro.
So I think we'll give people a few more minutes just to finish up, I suppose, finish up their day.
Yes.
And come and relax and listen to me for a bit.
Yes. So just a quick intro in the meantime that we wait for the others. So because generally people start to, they start like all in time, and then I know them generally between when it's like 5 minutes a delay, 10 minutes a delay, at a certain point other people join. My suggestion is like, first of all, like start with a very quick introduction. From my side, I'm really super happy to have to have you here, especially because of your experience, Toby, in learning and development, and generally because I really find the topic of the topic of today, right? It's not only about the skills, but it's about the mindset. Super intriguing, super interesting. And I really would suggest that you start now giving us like an idea of what we're going to speak, and then we go immediately into the slides. And you see these people that they keep in joining, and I will simply manage the sessions. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So before we get onto kind of the icebreakers, first of all, welcome and thank you for taking your time out of your day to come and listen. So my name is Toby Newman, but I suppose AKA the never-ending learner. I chose to have a separate name on LinkedIn and stuff. I just thought it'd be something different, I suppose. Like Giuseppe said, I've been kind of doing L&D for far too long, like 15, 20 odd years. I suppose it's only relatively recently, the last kind of maybe 3-4 years, that I've started to look properly at a learning mindset and kind of what that actually means. I'm a very practical person, so I try and make it less theoretical and more practical. So hopefully by the end of this hour or so, that you'll have some a better understanding of what it is, at least my definition of it. Again, I'm not the world's expert on mindsets and learning mindsets, that's for sure. But let's just say maybe I'm a very vocal person on these kind of things. I suppose my kind of views can be seen a bit radical. Maybe radical is not the best term to use, but a bit. I definitely don't sign myself up as a traditional L&D person. I like e-learning. I like face-to-face, but I really want to make sure that people want to do it blended and looking towards the future. Like things like I just don't like gamification. I don't particularly like this or understand the points of tests and compliance, and obviously they're important in terms of companies getting audits and stuff, but I always try and think of things differently. So you may not agree with all the things I'm going to talk about. They may not be practical in your environments, but I hope it will give you some inkling, or maybe you can take away some aspects of this into your day jobs, or even just something to think about. So we got 8 people, and that's great. If you can see, I'm just going to stop the sharing on this bit. I can see some people are already on, which is great. If you look in your chat on the Zoom, you'll be able to see a link that Giuseppe put in for Miro. It's the last link on the chat, and then you'll basically be able to follow along. If you've never used Miro before, it's basically an interactive whiteboard. You can see, I can see people are kind of zooming around it, which is great. I'm not one of these people that's like kind of, oh, you got to follow me, you got to do exactly what I said. If you just want to kind of stick your feet up, have a cup of coffee, and just listen to me prattle on, that is absolutely fine. A lot of this is going to be kind of interactive as much as possible. So if you want to play along, so to speak, then please do. But otherwise, kind of enjoy the ride. So
thank you. Let's do it.
Cool. All right. So to kick things off, hopefully everybody can see this first slide. I think I named it the icebreaker. And basically what it is I want you to think about what kind of holiday do you like? And so the north is an active holiday. South is relaxing. North, my geography is pretty terrible. East is hot, and west is cold. So Giuseppe, as you can see, put a red X, and he likes a active, relatively cold, well, not so cold, but active holiday. So to use this, on the left-hand side, you'll see a load of different icons. If you click on the pen, which is the one that Giuseppe used, you'll see you'll get like a pen automatically highlighted in different colors, and you can feel free to mark where you like it. So we've got Gilly. My apologies for completely terrible pronunciations, but that's so hot, active. Cool. Okay. Anybody else want to mark there? You can use the annotate in Zoom if you want. Santa is also in the hot active route. I am going to go for, I'm going to pick a color. What color am I going to go for? I'm going to go for blue, and I'm going to go down here. I like pretty relaxed and relatively cold. So that's kind of where I am. Cool. So that just gives you an idea. You can use icebreakers in Miro, very interactive. You can make them as kind of interactive as you want. But it's a kind of a nice starter. So I am going to move across to the second slide. I'm going to see if I can bring, normally you can bring people with you, but what you can do is on the top, you can see kind of a picture of me in a little circle in yellow. And you can, if you click on me, then you'll be able to follow where I am. So this makes things a bit easier rather than thinking, where the hell am I? But I'm looking at my YouTube stats. So my first kind of thought when it comes to learning mindsets is, why do we need a mindset in the first place? And I kind of started thinking about it. And one of the stats that kind of blew me away was this one. Just in YouTube, you've got billions of users, millions and millions and millions of hours being watched. It is crazy how much people use YouTube. I mean, maybe I'm showing my age, but back in when I was younger, there wasn't a YouTube, and when there was, it was basically, you know, cats dancing and doing kind of weird stuff. You wouldn't go there to find things out. But now, as you can see, it's the #2 place where people go to. And typically, you'd start with the, how do I blank, blank, blank. I was actually using YouTube this morning on how do I change a plug in a bathroom? Because obviously with wet and all that kind of stuff, I need to know it out. And yeah, there's hundreds of videos on that. And that's just practical stuff, let alone all the learning stuff that's a lot more respectable, I feel. But I wanted to, so this is a tiny little exercise. And what I'd like people to use is the sticky note. So if you use on the left-hand side, you'll see, I think it's the 4th one down. It looks like a square with a kind of turned up. If you click on it, you'll see you get a range of colors, and then you can bring a color across. There you go. There's a few people doing it. And I'd like you in that color to write down what other resources you use, what other resources, and this can be for your own use. It could be for work. So you've got Pinterest. My wife uses Pinterest. I've never used it myself, but she swears on it. TED Talks, absolutely brilliant. Experts who make make benefits. Yeah. Blinkist is lovely. I use Get Abstract, which is kind of the competition to it, but absolutely. But it's great that we've already got kind of, most people would go for, maybe Coursera or LinkedIn. Oh, there you go, Coursera and LinkedIn Learning. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria. Or Udemy, or God, there's Skillsoft. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds out there. But the reason of why I asked this question is that for me, I keep on asking myself, why aren't we all perfect? We've got millions and millions of free content, plus all this paid for content. Why the hell aren't we all perfect in everything that we do? If you want to be good at Excel, you can be expert within probably a couple of weeks. And in doing all that. Yeah, like Santa said, there's books, podcasts I love as well. There's there you go, thank you. There's so many different things you can check. And for me, at least, the reason why we are not perfect in all of this is not a lack of content, as you've all quite rightly said. It is because it's a mindset thing. So just because you've got all the content doesn't mean that that you're going to be excellent at it. And I like to use an analogy. So I'm going to go over to the next slide, which is the mindset one. Again, you can click on me and you can follow me, but I'm kind of just gone next door. So for me, mindset, I suppose, maybe mindset is everything is a bit over the top, maybe a bit exaggerated, but it is critical. So quick little one, if you want to use maybe the pen again, quick question, or even just hover over the slide that you want to. How often do you go to the gym? Yeah, that's like me, right motivation. Sometimes go, rarely go. And yeah, very rarely people go all the time. And then let me give you a little analogy of why I asked this question. So I remember when I wanted to join the gym a few years ago. Went down, had all the intention of the world, that, you know, I was excited to do it. I think it was a David Lloyd's that I wanted to join. So I had a pool and all that kind of stuff. And I signed up, and, you know, kind of for whichever program it was. And, you know, I was like, oh, this is great. I was on all the treadmills and the running machines. And then next week I kind of didn't really go. Well, no, tell a lie. I went the next week, but I only spent like 5 minutes in there, and then kind of basically just sat in the jacuzzi and left. And then after a while, I didn't go. And I suppose the question is, who is to blame for me not going? Now, most people will go me because I'm a lazy ass. And that would be relatively true. But there are other things at play. So let me give you a different scenario and see if this would change your mind. So same scenario in terms of I'm going to the gym, but rather than the salesperson explain how much it costs and show me, look, here is all our equipment, isn't it great? That they sit down with me, and I know some gyms do this as well, but they sit down with me and ask me, what are my goals? What do I actually want to achieve in the next 6 months to a year? And I'm not just talking, I want to work on my abs. It could be that I just want to get generally fitter, or I've got, I know, my wedding next year, or I just want to go on more dates and I feel conscious about my weight. It could be absolutely anything. But if they ask you, what are your goals? Then they start going into things like, well, what is reasonable? How far away do you live from this gym? How do you plan on getting here? Is it going to be before or after work? What kind of routines do you have? Maybe if we start to put in a routine, a habit of going of coming here. I mean, let's start slowly and build up. And when I walk around the gym, I'm not just going to show you how to use them. I'm going to show you why it's important that you use this particular set of equipment, and you know, the other effects that, you know, using the gym has, like on your mental health and giving off testosterone, or, you know, all the different drugs, natural drugs inside your body. So again, you know, if you want to kind of annotate on the screen, or just kind of again, feel free to come off mute and either, you know, ask me a question or challenge me, or disagree or agree. But for me, that second scenario is much more impactful. I'm much more then in the, I think it was Santa that did the, I'd love to go with the right motivation. That is then pushing in the right direction. And then it's still down to me, but my mindset is being addressed, as well as the technical, can I use the equipment? So that's kind of why I feel that mindset is so important. And what we'll do over the next kind of half an hour or so is we'll go through some of the definitions, how to break it down, and then maybe some of the ways you can use it. Does anybody have any questions or comments, or is anything?
I can share my my experience. What
Yes.
I mean, I always am the person that I say, okay, I should do some jogging, I should run. Is important, but I never really did it for real until when I finally decide to pay to subscribe for the half marathon that it will take place in Berlin the next year in April.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I will really do it. The point is that I spent 60 euros and I have this kind of commitment. And this is the reason why now I am running and I'm jogging like never before. And I did. So I guess that in my case,
because that's an interesting one, because a lot of people could say, well, you pay for the gym and that should be motivation. But for me, what it sounds like is that marathon one, because it's in the public, and it's almost that, you know, you potentially, if you don't train for it, you could be shown up, you know, with by your peers and by people you look up to. And that is different than going to the gym, and, you know, people can write off the gym because they think, well, nobody sees me down there unless I'm very unlucky. But does that make sense for you? Would that resonate for you?
It does. Probably, I mean, if I try to investigate a little bit more, my reasoning why actually I'm right now running and jogging is also because probably, how can I say, that the objective is really clear. Because with the gym is never really clear, because
so your
I mean,
goal is set.
Right, losing kilos slash getting muscles is kind of vague, right?
Yeah.
But to know that I can run for 21 kilometers is kind of very clear,
Yeah.
right? Probably this is my main driver.
Yeah, exactly. My wife, her very clear goal was, I need to get into my dress for our wedding, and it was quite. She purposely bought a dress. I think it was 2 sizes too small, on purpose. And I thought, well, okay, yeah, that's, you go for it, girl. But she did it. But that was her motivation, and that was her goal. Rather than just, I want to use the gym and just lose weight. And then you kind of go, yeah, I can push that later. But yeah, you're right. It's about having a set goal that pushes you. Yelly, you put your hand up.
Yeah, and I might be a bit early because I see the next slide is going about the definition. But
That's
what
fine.
I'm still wondering a bit is to what extent, because if I look at mindset, I always look at especially limiting beliefs. And so then for running, for example, it would be, I will never be able to run half a marathon. And then seeing somebody else who actually did it and actually made it can be super inspiring. But it's also just habit building. And
oh, absolutely.
For me, it's a bit, aren't we making it a bit big then if we include all that in mindset? Because then mindset just becomes super big.
Yeah. And so, because I think for me, I absolutely agree, because when I hear people talk about mindsets, they talk very high level, very philosophical, and they kind of just assume that everybody knows what a mindset is and how to achieve it. And I don't agree with that. I think that people don't know. They may know, I have an idea of what a mindset is, but they've got very little idea, at least nothing that's laid out to them to say, how am I actually going to do this? And for me, not just habits. Habits is part of that. Building habits that you can achieve is important. But like using that example of the gym, if you don't have a goal to get there, then those habits are just going to wane. And so it's a combination of all different things. And I'll talk about habits. Actually, tell a lie. I'm not going to specifically talk about habits in this one. I'm going to talk about some of the things that you can think about that will, if you not get those in place, but if you think about those things, they then lead to you creating habits. So I'm kind of trying to think of the bit before it, right? Because I mean, if I talk to my wife, she's just gone freelance, gone from a 9 to 5 to being a freelance, and she's struggling in terms of habits because she was used to doing a 9 to 5 with set work, and now she works for herself. And I can simply turn around to her and say, you need to create new habits. It's like, yeah, it's kind of tell me something I don't know. And so I think we all know that habits lead to development and lead to improvements, but it's how do I get into the mindset to even start to build a habit? That's the bit that I'm interested in. I hope that makes a bit of sense. And hopefully as we go on during this, that we can kind of chat about it and see if that does make sense. Any other questions? No? Again, feel free, you can't interrupt me as we're going along. This is just more a chat between friends. So definitions. This is a bit of a mouthful. Mindsets are those. This is from mindset.com. So it's kind of the best I could come up with. Mindsets are those collections of beliefs and thoughts that make up the mental attitude, inclination, habit, or disposition that predetermines a person's interpretations and responses to events, circumstances, and situations. I mean, to be honest, I kind of got no idea what that means. It sounds very, very kind of philosophical. It sounds philosophical. Sounds very nice, but you can't just tell that to somebody and go, there you go, now you build that. So what I want to do is break that down and think about, well, what goes into this so that you can create habits and you can create responses to events that will be everlasting, so to speak. So I'm going to move across to the 4 aspects. So again, if you want to click on my face, you can follow me and see where I am. So the way I've tried to do it is I've broken it down into 4 key aspects. And again, there's no hard and fast rule for this. This is just my interpretation of it. So starting in the top left, that one is positivity. Gotta get self in order first. So top left is positivity. Top right, so I'm going to move my mouse around. So the top left is positivity. Top right is self-awareness. Bottom left is self-development, and bottom right is sharing. So you may have heard the term of growth mindset. A lot of people talk about growth mindset, and to me, growth mindset is still nice. It's still a good thing. The way I define a growth mindset is an insular one. You need positivity, you need self-awareness, you need self-development, but that's it. You know, you have a growth mindset, and not kind of be damned everybody else, but for me, a growth mindset is you are growing yourself. For me, where a learning mindset takes over is you add that 4th dimension of sharing. That's not just you want to grow yourself, but you want to bring others along with you. And to me, that is a definition of that's my piece of a learning mindset. So let me go through those ones. I'll give you kind of a couple of examples on why I've chosen them. So the first one in terms of positivity. Now, the last thing I want you to think of when I talk about positivity is, at least the image in my head, is an American. Apologies for anybody that's American here. It's a stereotype, but I'll use it. Of American gun and go, we can do this, and you see, you know, kind of I don't know if it's the NFL or rugby or football or whatever coach kind of shouting at their players, going, "Come on, we can do this," and that's not positivity to me. That may work in a small factor, they may work short term, but to me, that's not positivity. Positivity is about coming up against challenges and then wanting to find a solution or way around those barriers to be able to progress, and not necessarily saying, I can't do this. Now, the people that say, I can't do this, that's still important. I'll come back to that later when I talk about leadership. But in terms of individuals, positivity for me is, I suppose you could call it a positive mindset, I suppose, but then you get mindsets and stuff. But for me, positivity is about thinking, I don't want to use the word too many times, but thinking positively about different scenarios, even if it's just thinking positive about your life. I mean, you hear people talk about positive reinformation. Is it reinformation? I think it is. That's you kind of, you say back to yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, or the mantras that people talk about. And that all works for me. When it comes to work, and how do you put positivity into work? For me, it's about embracing people's positive attitude and not shouting down, and this is just as important, not shouting down the people that are negative. And I think we'll all come across them. People in our team or people in the organization that just go, as soon as any new idea comes out or any new process comes out, they go, yeah, that's not going to work. But for me, and again, this may be just my own perception on this, but for me, the reason people have negative connotations about things is because of something. And it could be because I don't know, let's say that the reason they're negative about the next change that's coming up is because they don't understand the full reason why that change is happening, or they've never been communicated to effectively or transparently. So they don't know what their role is. They're worried if they're going to get made redundant later on. And so, a more effective communication maybe change that person's mindset into a positive one. And it's things like, this is easier said than done, but calling out people to say, no, don't, if they say, oh, that person's always negative, it's like, no, well, they're not always negative. They just have a different opinion on what this process is. So it's about, and I'm a big believer of, God, I can't even think of the word, of psychological safety. And so in order to be able to be positive and call out people that are calling out others, you need to have that psychologically safe environment where people are free to say, don't be so bad on him. There's maybe a reason he's so negative. Or again, if you are that negative person, do you feel safe being in inverted commas, that you can say why you're feeling negative? Or do you feel like you're just shut out and kind of go, well, yeah, I'll just kind of see that it all fails later on. So psychological safety is important within that positivity. Any questions on that side of things?
All clear to me. Guys, if you have any questions, please, let's make it interactive. Let's make it really like a conversation.
Yeah.
So just jump into it, okay?
And you've got the chats. If you don't want to speak up, then you kind of, Giuseppe and I are looking after the chat as well. So feel free if you've got any comments or you don't agree or whatever it is. So I'm going to go to the top left of self-awareness. For me, this is a massive part. And I think self-awareness has been kind of given a bad history. So I think people, at least again, my supposition, people think of self-awareness as meditation, or like you're sitting on a mountaintop, kind of you go for forever and ever and ever. And that's not self-aware for me. Self-aware is about understanding who you are, what kind of communication you do, how you affect others, and more importantly, to be non-judgmental about yourself. And that is a hard thing to do. So to give you a little example of the importance, or how self-awareness can be done. If you look at your room that you're in at the moment, whether, I don't know, maybe you're in your bedroom, maybe you're still at the office, maybe you're in your office, in your home office, wherever. What I want you to do is look around your room and look at things, or try and find one thing that you never noticed before. And it could be maybe a crack in the ceiling, or it could be that there's, like I'm looking around, I've got paint on my window frame, which I never noticed before, which I probably need to paint over. But it's understanding, if you look around you and really look about kind of what's about and spend time focusing on that, then you get to see things that you weren't necessarily aware of. And for me, that's the same. You can do the same exercise and look inwards. So there are, and again, I'm not an expert on self-awareness. There are many, many good experts, and I'll put in the chat, I'll put a couple that I like. I think one's called Life Skills That Matter, but I'll find the link. And what's Stephen, who runs it, what he does is he's designed this basically template in this workshop where you can basically have a self-awareness checklist that you do every day. And again, like you're talking about habits, it's about doing a daily task or a daily checklist. And I think it's at least the last time I did it, it's things like, have I said hello to everybody that I've met today? Is there anybody new that I've met today and I don't know too much about them? Was I polite? Was I curious about everybody that I met? Did I, if I didn't finish all my tasks, then why didn't I finish my tasks? So it's almost like a mini retrospect that you do to yourself. And that could be a daily thing, a weekly thing, but it's, again, going back to the habits that we talked about. Self-awareness is something that cannot be done in 5 minutes. It's not like you do a 5-minute meditation and go, right, now I'm self-aware, done, this was easy. It takes sometimes years of practice, trying different things, from meditation to mindfulness exercises to yoga. There are many different things you can do, but it takes practice, and it takes that creation of habits to think, this is important to me, I need to start doing it and then use it, and then you're usually then more likely to carry on if you find it useful. So to me, that's self-awareness. And I think if you are like for me, I call myself a never-ending learner, but if you are serious about improving yourself or improving others around you, it's like you can't improve others until you know yourself, until you, I'm sure there's a proverb in there somewhere. I'm sure somewhere like, somebody very clever in ancient Greeks come up with a great proverb that I can't think of at the time, about kind of, knowing yourself before you know others, or something like that. But for me, it's true. For me, it's true. It's that you need to know yourself before you can help others. Any questions, comments, thoughts on self-awareness? No? Cool. Okay. So the bottom left is about self-development. Now, in theory, if you're positive and you're self-aware, then kind of naturally you develop yourself, you're self-developed. But the reason I added it in as a separate area is that just because, and going back to the content of all the different YouTube and everything else, just because the content is out there doesn't mean that you're self-developed. Just because you've registered for a few courses, or you've got a few podcasts listed on your favorites, that doesn't mean that you are now a self-developed person. To me, being a self-developed is, it's almost like you're excited to do this. You want to do it because it's something that you enjoy. I mean, if I think back to when I was young, and I remember running into school and kind of telling everybody the new trick that I learned, or even today, I'll go into work and kind of ping people and go, oh, I found this really cool new tech that can do this and this, or this is really cool. I mean, maybe this is we could use something like this. And it's that, not necessarily the sharing, but it's the thing that you're developing yourself because you want to. And yes, they all link back, and what's your goal and what's your need, but self-development needs to be a separate thing for me. It's like, you need to think, am I self-developed? Do I drive my own learning journey? Maybe that's a better way of putting it. Do I sit back and wait for people to tell me what to train or tell me what to learn, or am I doing it myself? Maybe I don't know if we're all in the L&D in space, but I'm sure we all know people that complete tests quickly, or are curious, and as soon as a new tool comes out, they're jumping around and clicking around, or if a new resource comes out, they've taken half the courses, or it looks like they've taken half the courses before anybody else. And if you have those kind of people in your organization, then reach out to them, find out what motivates them. Maybe it's they've got a great manager, maybe it's just the way they've just wired. But reach out to them and interview them, ask them, share their story, share their success, and ask for tips from them. What do they do that works for them that maybe works for others? So not necessarily we all have to be self-developed, but we have to understand and find people that are, and kind of tap into them. Any questions on that one, or any thoughts?
I do have one.
Yeah.
I mean, I like this idea that, I mean, it's super easy, but we can't, I mean, to be honest, at work, we constantly forget. So the best, if I understand what you say, the best environment in order to learn and to self-develop is an environment where there is the right motivation, is what we spoke about it before,
Yeah.
where you are kind of self-aware of what are your key strengths, where are you, what are your self-development areas, but also it's super important kind of be positive. So
Yeah.
think positive. And I don't know any L&D specialist that has an understanding of a strong knowledge of positive psychology. They just go into the tools. I first go immediately into the tools, what these people can learn. But I'm not an expert in positive psychology. Do you feel that L&D specialists should learn more about positive psychology?
See, I'm a big believer of not trying to be an expert in everything. As you could probably tell from this, I mean, I'm not quoting. I'm terrible at trying to quote kind of studies and all that kind of stuff. So although I suppose the answer is yes and no. Yes, it is important for L&D specialists to appreciate and understand that these areas are important, but I wouldn't expect them and I wouldn't want them to try and be experts in these areas. And that's where we use our network. That's where we use our connections and we bring in experts and we kind of I always talk about L&D stop being the, God, I can't even think. It's too late in the day for me. Stop being the throttle. Stop being the bottleneck. That's the word I was looking for. Stop being the bottleneck between experts and knowledge and users. So in the old days, and maybe some of us still do it, is that if something needs to be trained out, we would get all the information and then train it out. And I'm like, no, that's I'm not the expert. I probably never will be the expert. It would take me forever to try and update myself and all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, if you're a freelancer and that's your area of expertise, then absolutely, that's you concentrate on that. But as corporate L&D, what I wanted to instill in as many people as possible is the idea that you should not be the bottleneck. You should not be the expert. You should have an appreciation of these different areas. But whether it be positive psychology, self-awareness exercises, community of practice, which is kind of the sharing idea as well, is that you know who to find, who are the experts, and you reach out to them and you either bring them in and you kind of expert meet team or meet end user, go at it. And you obviously your role is to understand what are the needs of the company and to tailor the experts kind of presentation so that it suits your needs and your team's needs. But I wouldn't expect you to be the expert, no.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so the last one in terms of sharing is, for me, this is absolutely critical, because again, the first three is all about growth mindset. This last one, the sharing, is about how do I get my message out there? And there's a couple of key principles or key aspects of sharing. First of all, you can't force sharing. that's kind of the first thing. It sounds obvious, but a lot of companies still to this day will kind of, I suppose you can use this presentation as almost I keep on saying, please share, please share, please share. And everybody goes, I'm not, maybe I'm not in the frame of mind. Maybe I don't have any thoughts on it. Maybe this isn't the right time that you're listening to this presentation. And you're just, you're not there in terms of your company, or there's millions of reasons why you don't share your thoughts. And the first thing is to understand that there are many reasons why people don't share, and that's fine. But for me, it starts at the top and at the bottom. So for me, if you really want to create learning mindsets within a company, then it's the leadership need to show that this is important. And so they need to share their knowledge and their experiences. To give you an example, what I've done in my previous company is we started every week that we would share a little bit of knowledge in every team meeting we had. Again, going back to that building habits, every meeting, the first 5 minutes, because if you do it at the first, it shows as important rather than at the last. First 5 minutes of every meeting, you go, right, what do people want to share? And I guarantee the first meeting is silence. It's like, I don't know. I don't have anything to share. I mean, how many times have we done icebreakers, or when people say, so what's a funny thing about you, or what's an interesting thing about you? You go, I don't know. I'm like, that's crazy. Everybody has something interesting about them. But you put them on the spot and you try to draw that information out, and they're like, no. So what we did is we kind of, and then I started sharing. So I'd be like, well, this is a great podcast that I went on to. This is a new theory that's come out about gamification or something. What do people think? And then over time, again, I kept at it. And then over time, people started sharing their own thoughts. And, within a year, it was the main topic. We kind of almost not forgot everything else, but people wanted to share their stuff. And to me, that's also leadership, is that idea that leaders not only just communicate, oh, here's our API, here's our KPIs, and here's our stats, and this is why we're number one at this or whatever. But things like, I mean, how many leaders or CEOs do you know that share what they've just learned, or even that they've gone on to the LMS or LXP that you've got, and you can see that they're actually taking any training? Now, they always say that they're too busy and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, how did you must have learned knowledge to get to where you are as a CEO or CFO or whatever position you are. So there is nuggets of gold in there that you just need to get out. And people talk about, oh, we want internal mobility and we want progression, but you're not sharing how you got there. So how can anybody else follow in your footsteps or go up the rank? So for me, it's understanding that sharing is difficult, that people share in different ways with different things. But it's, again, going back to that habit creating, is finding little nuggets and starting small and just starting to share. Don't just expect everybody to start sharing straight away. It needs to happen over time. Any thoughts on share, or anybody got any, not comments, but like limitations or things that kind of sharing is not really ideal in their experience?
I can maybe jump in here.
Sure.
Well, I have experienced many companies where sharing is not the desired, let's say, behavior, or also they do share, however, just to an extent. So I work as a consultant, so I work with different types of organizations. And one of the more recent examples was teams that were teams that were regional but part of a global function.
Cool.
Had a session together, and one of the regional teams was presenting something which was a new concept, new idea, which they are adapting and improving their own process. So they did share that, but then they would not share the actual presentation afterwards. So you see, for me, it's one of those.
The transparency is not there, or the trust isn't there.
Or it was I think sometimes there's this in certain organizations, you see that culture of sharing, but it's not really sharing, it's a show off, I say.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Starts the same, but it really has a different meaning. So it's just on that superficial level where, okay,
I did this, look at me kind of thing.
Yeah, but not necessarily wanting others to tap into that that knowledge, right?
Yeah, because that could be putting off. Because if you see people going, oh God, then why the hell am I'm not going to do this again, or I'm not going to share because he's just that, or he or she is just going to. It's almost like when you're in a school playground, like kind of, oh well, I can do 3 jumps, or well, I can do 4. Yeah, it's not a. So what would you say? What would you think could potentially get around that? What kind of steps would you think would need to be put in place?
Well, it's obviously a deeper issue usually when you have that. So that's more on a cultural level in an organization, and taps into some of the topics that you have mentioned around, let's say, psychological safety, trust. So, I would probably just say that, in this situation, first of all, you need to identify whether there is willingness to change, right?
Well,
because
yeah.
First of all, because if a team operates in a certain way, then you need to find your allies, right? Is there anyone else that wants to break that habit?
And again, it starts at the top as well, is that sometimes leaders don't even know that this is going on, or aren't aware of it. But yeah, I mean, and I think for me, the thing is what you said right at the start, is that it can be many different things, but it's a deep dive into why this is happening. Is that I think far too many times companies go, it doesn't seem like we're sharing much between divisions, or there's a lot of silos going on. Let's build a training on it, and let's talk about how important sharing is, and how we want to drop these silos. And they'll go, there you go, we've done. But I think we'd all agree that's not the solution. Like you said, it's that what are the underlying, and it's almost impossible sometimes to figure out what are the underlying issues. But you need to take the time, the trust within your team and your company to, and the transparency to get at those issues. And again, psychological safety is not, oh, let's just train out psychological safety. No, it needs to be, because you can't just say to people, trust each other. It needs to be really kind of embedded as part of their culture. And, like people need to feel free to be calling out each other and all those kind of things. So I mean, the one thing I don't want to get across in this is that I don't want to sound flippant in terms of creating a learning mindset or a learning culture is easy. Just follow these steps. It is a very, very hard thing to do. But I hope that by doing, thinking about these things, at least as individuals, we can become a bit more open to these areas. And then I think, like you said, Annette, is start influencing others to build that as well. Cool. No, thank you for that. Sorry, Giuseppe. Yeah.
Something that I'm trying to do, but I don't know if I will succeed, to be honest. I will let you know in a year or something. Something that I'm trying to do in my organization in order to create this switch and make these beautiful things happening is like focusing on where actually the money is. So what does it mean? I have like this team of sales people and business development people, and they are really motivated. The entire organization is really motivated to make them performing, because they are the ones that bring the money back. They are the ones that generate the money, because they are the closest to the final users, right? To the customers, basically. So basically what I'm trying to do is like, for some reason, they were always the last of my L&D strategy. For some reason, I was always starting maybe more from the engineers or from the supporting teams, because it's kind of easier.
Yeah, because they're the kind of people that almost already have a learning mindset, because they need, and they're the ones always asking for more training, because they need to update their skills. They know that. But it's the quiet ones, it's almost the ones you need to be more attention to.
Exactly. So maybe starting to, I mean, focusing much more our L&D strategies on the learning needs of these people that are the closest to the final users and to the ones that generate the most the revenues at the end of the day. It helps to create a cultural transformation because everyone is interested to make these guys performing as much as possible.
Yeah, so
Let's
if you
put
can
it in
make the
this way.
money makers perform, then all of a sudden you get more budgets and you get more people and you get more time and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah,
this
we
is
kind of
just
have to play the game, so to speak. Yeah.
Right. It's just an intuition that I got, and I will let you know in 1 year. We will speak 2022 December, and I will let you know if if it was a good idea or not.
Perfect. I'll hold you to that. Cool. Okay. So a few more things to talk about. I mean, I don't think we're going to go all the way up to the hour. It depends on if there's any chats and stuff afterwards. But I always like to share this one when I talk about these kind of things. I don't know if people have heard of Moore's Law, but Moore's Law was kind of, I can't even remember when he came up with it, but the kind of specific Moore's Law is, I think, that transistors within computers will, I think it's quadruple every 6 months. The power of a computer quadruples every 6 months, and that kind of is why, you know, Intel laptops were getting more and more powerful, etc., etc., etc. I use this one. It's a slightly different one. It's talking about AI, and this is, you know, basis. Was it by 2015? AI was as clever as a rat, and by was it about now? I suppose a couple of years ago. Was that 2022? Yeah, so about now, computers about as clever as a person. I'm not sure I'd agree with that, but yeah, close enough. And then at least this one says by 2045, there'll be kind of, yeah, the singularity, whatever, you know, I don't know, Skynet or whatever you want to call that. But the reason I put this up is I talk about that human beings need to stay ahead of the curve. And when I talk about the curve, I talk about Moore's Law. And to me, when I say keep ahead of the curve, I talk about the fact that if technology in general is moving at this exponential pace, I mean, even if you just look at smartphones in the last few years, computers, kind of you name it, it's going stupidly fast. So in order for us to keep our skills up to date, I think it was the World Health Organization a couple of years ago said that by 2023, it's like 50% of your skills would be out of date, which is basically, was it, you know, next year, the year after. And then I think it was by 2025, almost everybody would have to reskill, which is, you know, basically now. And the reason they're saying that is because of this, is because of computer powering. If I go on to the next bit, this is just an image that I've found. This is just a snapshot of some of the software that is currently available and some of the platforms. It is crazy. And this is, you know, I haven't heard of probably any of these. I've heard of obviously some of the companies inside the middle ring, but not the services outside it. And that's just a small chunk of the technology that we're using in our companies. You know, if you look at just L&D in the last few years, you've got video learning, you've got e-learning, you've got the use of things like Camtasia, video editing. Now you've got APIs and XAPIs with LXPs. You've got well, I suppose that's already enough to start off with. So there's so many skills that we need to be improving on. I mean, like if somebody asked me what would be the three top skills of an L&D person now, I would say video creation or like video production. So creation, editing, that kind of thing, facilitation, and software. So whether it be, you know, knowing what and a learning experience platform, an LXP is, an AI, and that kind of thing. and knowing how to use those platforms efficiently. That for me would be the three big things. I'm sure we've all got slightly different opinions on that, but to me, the premise is that technology is getting so quick and so many software plugins are there that we can't just sit on our laurels. We need to kind of keep on going. And like we said at the start, just having the resources is not enough. We need to have the want and the drive to be able to upskill ourselves, and then the practical physicality of being able to upskill ourselves. Anybody got any thoughts on that, or anybody disagree with my top three, or even agree?
I think it depends from the context, right? I mean, how huge as well is the organization probably, and what does it mean L&D? So are you building up the L&D completely from scratch? Then maybe you need more strategy, more feeling for what the people actually really need, more like coaching skills. Yeah. If you're talking about a mega organization,
coaching is a big one. Coaching and mentoring is a massive one. Yeah.
If you're talking about like a huge organization where the L&D team is there already since 15 years, maybe yes, video production and tech stuff, they get more experience, more importance. But I don't know what the others think about it.
Does anybody have any thoughts on kind of where, at the very least, L&D is kind of flowing in terms of this need to update ourselves?
From my side, I definitely agree about updating and constant learning. And me personally, I get massive joy of just discovering new tools or new articles or anything. Yeah. But I was just wondering how to, because this is one of the key components of L&D workers, right? It's how to facilitate this mindset, how to give this mindset to people, how to transfer it.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. It's like kind of, so I think if I was gonna, I mean, I suppose we could talk about it for hours on this. If I was to boil it down to two things, maybe three things. The first one is to make sure that, as I said in the self-awareness, like get our own house in order, or in our own self in order. So that's not saying we have to be perfect in all the areas, but do we at least understand what is self-awareness? Do we understand what is positivity? Do we understand about psychological safety and the elements of that? Have we looked into it? So first of all, that. Then I think the next step would be your team, your direct L&D HR team. Is, do they believe they're on the same path? Are you on an island in thinking that we need to think differently about this? Is your manager on board with this? Not saying that they have to understand all of it, but are they thinking, yes, we need to start putting effort into this and think about doing it? So I think, so once you've got those bits down, for me, and again, I don't have the golden bullets to figure this out. What worked for me within our company was a twofold thing. Is, first of all, I just started sharing what I thought were interesting things. I started first of all weekly, and then daily, just sharing articles that I've read, podcasts, and not just all about learning, but just interesting things, and just things that are going on in the world, and just thinking, and then I started adding to it in terms of not just, oh, this is interesting, but this is how it could improve our company, or this is how this particular article impacts the way that you learn or something. So I was adding my own discourse into it, and I wasn't expecting anybody else to reply. But over time, people kind of came to expect that I'd be sharing stuff. and they came to like it. And then I got more and more people following it and replying, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. I also did a series which I called the Spark Sessions, where I invited, I basically found very interesting people around the world that to come in for free and do talks on things like what is mindfulness, what is gratitude, what is joyfulness at work, what is self-awareness at work. And they all came in for free, you know, half an hour chat, voluntary, and I just put it out there. And I went from about 6 people joining up to about 300-400 people joining, just because of word of mouth and people getting, oh, that's an interesting topic. So that's one side of it. The other side, again, that's why they're getting your manager at least to buy in, is to go up the chain and get the people that are making the choices, the leadership, not necessarily put it into their KPIs, but to start thinking about how do we measure development and people development differently, and how do we make sure that we can measure a learning mindset. Now that is basically impossible, but things like moving away from tracking how many hours individuals have trained in an LMS, because I think that's just complete waste of time, and moving more towards maybe a survey of how engaged do they feel they are in learning. For example, is the leadership pushing personal development plans for every employee? Which basically a personal development plan is, you know, what are your goals for the next year for development away from your day job, so to speak, or even as part of your day job. One of the things I did for my last company is I encouraged and kept on at our HR department, and we got a personal development plan to be included as part of leadership's bonuses, which meant that a leader could only get their bonus if at the very least every member of their team had a PDP, a personal development plan. What they put in it, that's another step, but just the fact of putting it on the radar of these people to say this is important, and it's important because we're putting it in the KPIs. So, and again, there are many things, but that would be for me the kind of the steps to putting these things practically in place. Okay, so the last few things, because I know we're almost out of time, but I want to. So I put here a couple of things to kick you off. So I think I mentioned a couple of these already. So set aside some time to knowledge share. There's that link, the life skills that matter is the link there you can go onto. That's a really great self-awareness exercise. Always focus on the positives when providing feedback. Understand how you best learn, both yourself and then, you know, maybe sending out surveys to individuals as the company to say, do you know how you learn? Do you know that you prefer to listen rather than read? Do you know that you prefer to touch stuff rather than do something else? But what else do people think? So again, you can pick on I think it's the 3rd or 4th one down, which is the box with a little kind of corner turned up. What other tips can you think of right now that could help bring in a mindset? Ensure that people have the right safe environment. God, yeah, that's absolutely critical. Absolutely. Anything else can people think of?
I had one that is definitely something that I will bring with me. Ensuring that people have the right safe environment, positive environment before starting learning.
Yeah,
it can be definitely crucial. Too often we put them in a room and say, okay, learn. Maybe exactly. if we can do something that it can create like the right environment, the right space, the right positivity.
Yeah, and that starts in the classroom. or be it a physical or virtual classroom, that starts with like, do we all, and I'm as guilty as anybody of this, do we all make sure that the people in this room in front of me feel secure in sharing? And that could be things like, do they know that this session is being recorded? Do they know what is happening to that recording? Because you don't want to share your ideas and then that recording gets sent somewhere. It could be that you just have to reiterate, if you're in a classroom, this is a safe space. Any feedback, and I've had this many a times, any feedback you give me about the managers will not go to the managers directly. And obviously that trust has to build, and you have to earn that trust. But those kind of things, that needs to start with us. So you got share success stories, absolutely. Facilitated process of sharing or pre-created framework of sharing. Ooh, Santa, what do you mean by that? I assume that was yours, Santa.
No, I will just share some insights from my perspective.
Yeah.
Sometimes I stopped myself. Like right now, I am in a new team with the learning and development specialists, and I'm just coming across these new tools and new workshops, etc. And I kind of stopped myself from sharing, because there is no framework for it. There was no place to actually share.
Because the knowledge gets lost.
In a way, but it's also it kind of is invited to share, but no one is quite sharing, so it's not developed framework for it, And I stopped myself from sharing, like oversharing. I'm sharing a bit, but I sometimes stop myself. I was like, okay, like maybe it's not important, maybe it's just exciting for me, But and then I created the Slack post with a thread. It was like, okay, this is the sharing part. So I created, in a way, the framework for myself that this is okay to share in this thread. I will continue sharing in it, and I invite others to share.
Okay, so you create your own space within, whether it be Yammer or Slack or whatever the platform is, to say, this is where it's good to share. Because otherwise, if you're sharing in the wrong place and then people go, oh no, this space is for something else, then you feel like an idiot.
Sort of, yeah. And this is something that I created for myself in within my team, and I am eager to create also in the organization, like, okay, this is the sharing part, like whatever I will facilitate, okay, there is place for sharing.
No, I like that.
Whether it's like this in a Miro board, or because it's hard sometimes to overstep this step.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's finding what works for you and your team. And that could be many different things, but it's, again, goes back to that being, this right environment, or the safe environment, is that, even just asking the team in a meeting, where is the best place to share? I've got a few things I'd love to kind of talk about. Where is the best place to share? And then if people go, I don't know, then that's a great discussion starter of, well, let's figure one out. Let's create a framework of where do we share? And it may not be that you regularly share, but at least you've got somewhere that everybody knows that is the place we're going to share. No, I love that. Absolutely.
I would like to share something about the topic sharing. Because I had exactly the same question of Santa, like kind of a month ago in my head, and I was speaking with this coach, and she's a bit progressive, okay, so I don't know if it really can work everywhere, but she said, well, but of course, I mean, it's because they don't use the body, because it's just like when they go in a training, it's just like an intellectual exercise, and it's difficult to break the ice. if you really want to create like an environment where they can share, you need to let them using the body. They say, but what do you mean? And they say, you need to make them doing dancing, if it's possible. If it's not about dancing, it's about fitness. And say, look, but they're managers, old school managers, they will never dance. Say, let me try, let me come in the leadership meeting, let me try. And in the leadership development program with the leadership team, now we make them dancing as well, kind of. And the dancing thing and the using the body make them kind of showing some kind of vulnerability, probably breaking definitely the ice. They definitely laugh a lot.
Yeah.
I
think there's a lot of research. So recently, one of the talks I had in the Spark sessions that was physical intelligence. So rather than emotional intelligence, physical intelligence. And they said that there's studies that link the movement and the physical movement that you do to chemicals that are released, obviously apart from the obvious testosterone and all those kind of things, but there are specific chemicals that are released that help with, you know, safety and all these different things. So there is a lot of research out there that kind of backs up what you're saying.
Yeah, it's, I think, embodied learning, right? And
embedded learning, yeah. And I mean, I do the same. I was doing a leadership course, and I put in the learn how to do the Macarena. You know, they did all with the hands and stuff. And they were like, no, that would never work. And I got 250 senior leaders on many different age groups, all standing up and learning the Macarena. Because it's, you know, I did it with confidence, you know, kind of everybody, you know, you're creating a safe space, everybody's in the environment, everybody's having fun, but you're building little things, you're building that trust within the group, you're building that a learning is like, then you kind of use, look, so you learn how to do a dance as quickly as you can. And it just, I absolutely agree with that kind of going quirky. Obviously it doesn't always work with every group, and you've got to kind of buy into it 100%, and kind of know that this is a good thing. But I 100% agree with that. What else we got? So you got for positive thinking, kindness, mindfulness, I recommend the Book of Joy. Now that rings a bell. I'll have to look that one up. Okay, I'll be looking that one up. Cool. Sharing success stories, retrospectives, absolutely. Passion sessions. I can imagine whoever wrote that is probably similar to kind of my Spark sessions, about kind of different sessions that are just people sharing their passion, whether it be cycling or cats or I don't know, but that is sharing. And I think, to me, again, person who wrote that, please feel free to share. But for me, when I say sharing, it doesn't necessarily have to be work related. I mean, in the company I'm at the moment, there is a whole Yammer group associated with cute dogs. And I looked at it first and went, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I was looking through it, and there's just loads of pictures of cute dogs. And I'm like, go for it. That's sharing. But they've created a psychologically safe environment that people can feel free to share their cute dogs, and they've got something in common that they can share. And then that may well grow into something more, that they share other things, or they feel more confident to share work-related stuff. So yeah, there was no magical cure for this. Anybody got any last thoughts? So there's one last slide I want to go into, but anybody got any last thoughts on this side of things? So for me, the last thing, I kind of didn't have the slides ready, but I wanted to very briefly talk about the difference between a mindset and a culture, because to me, and again, it's just my personal perspective, there is no such thing as a culture, a learning culture, a work culture, whatever culture you want to talk about, because a culture to me is just a whole set of people with the same beliefs. And I mean, if we go into countries, does everybody in America have the same culture? Does everybody in the UK have the same culture? Does everybody in even the EU or France or Germany, wherever you want to go, it's a group of people that share a similar feeling, but they all do it in their own way. They all think about it slightly differently. So what my last takeaway on this is that what I don't want to do is say, well, and that's why specifically I don't talk about a learning culture. I talk about learning mindsets, because we can control our own mindset. We can influence our peers around us and kind of maybe grow that upwards, but you can't create a learning culture. All you can do is start to do all the different things that we've talked about today and encourage others to do the same. And then over time, if those become habits, then you can say the company has a learning culture. But it has to be earned. You can't just turn around and go, yep, we've got a learning culture, and now let's figure out how to do it. No, I don't agree with that. It needs to be something that's earned over time. So that's kind of my 2 pence worth, so to speak. Does anybody have any final thoughts or comments? I mean, I'm happy to kind of give you 10 minutes or so back in your evening, but does anybody have any final thoughts?
I have a question.
Oh yeah.
When you finally see that the learning culture is alive, what are the elements that you see are there present?
That's a good question. So I think for me, if somebody said, how do you prove that a learning culture is there, is a few things. This is just more off the top of my head, that there is active discussion within their social, whether it's Yammer, Slack, Teams, WebEx, whatever it is, that there's active discussions going on, that the leadership are replying to comments made on. So for example, if there's a big announcement, maybe the head of HR or the head of the company puts an announcement, and you'll usually get, well, for me, if it's a learning culture, you should see a whole stream of people underneath, not just saying, oh great, this is great, or coming out with things like, but how is that going to work? What do you mean by this? Have you thought about this? And then the leadership actually replying and saying, oh, that's a great point. Yeah, we not necessarily didn't think of that, but that would be awesome if they said that. But like, we're looking into that, or that's not part of this remit. And that discourse going on, to me, that's a great indicator. Surveys, people when say, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the NPS, Net Performance Score, or Net Promoter Score, it's also called, where you basically say, out of 10, would you recommend this course, product, whatever it is, to anybody else? I use that all the time within learning. Would you recommend this course? Would you recommend this company to other people? And to me, that's a great indicator of a learning culture, to show that is a good score. Yeah, those are kind of some of the high level things for me. And yeah, a lot to do with psychological safety, if I'm being honest. But yeah, that would be kind of the things that I think of. Cool. So yeah, so that's it for me. I think this it was recorded. We'll put it up on Slack. I can imagine. Seppa, is that right? They'll go on the events page on Slack.
Absolutely, we will. We record the session, and if it's fine for you guys, we can share it afterwards. Overall, for me, was super interesting. I had fun. I mean, obviously it's a bit late in the day. I appreciate people are a bit tired and stuff, but I enjoyed it. So, Zibi, thank you very much for inviting me. Absolutely. I to be honest, I will leave also the session with a question from Santa, because it's a very good question. Like, what does it mean? How do you see if the learning and development team is really like having an impact? How do you notice that? It's such a beautiful question. And to be honest, I really like the way how you, Toby, you approach the entire topic. So really thank you for that. Let's please keep in touch.
And to be honest, if I kind of, it sounds weird, and again, this is, you know, maybe not everybody's street, but to me, a learning culture is almost like a gut feeling. It's like it's a feeling. It's not a kind of, oh, tick, 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 then you're a learning culture. It's, I mean, like, for example, for me going into, I recently moved into a new company, and I wouldn't say they've got a learning culture, but things like my manager, when I came up with ideas about kind of, oh, why do we do it like this? It wasn't like, oh, it's just the way we've always done it, that's the way we're going to do it. It was, oh, well, you know, maybe think of something else, and accepting different opinions. When I was talking with other team members, and just kind of coming up with different ideas, or of asking them why things were doing the way they did it, they were honest with me. They were like, yeah, you know, kind of, we've just been under the cosh a lot, and it's just been, you know, all hands to the pump. And to be honest, we let the ball kind of loose on this one, but it's something we do feel is important. And you know, it's not like there was a checklist to say now this company is a learning culture, but it's just a sense you get. It's a feeling that you get. You go, well, this feels like it's at least going in the right direction.
I agree, totally agree.
Cool.
Thank
so,
you very much.
Yeah, I'll leave it up to
evening,
you
guys. Thank you very much for the evening. Thank you very much for these learnings. See you soon. We are all connected, kind of, with the learning development shakers.
And reach out to me if you've got any questions. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn and all that.
I will.
And Slack and stuff. So feel free for anybody to reach out to me as well.
I will definitely do it. I would love to keep sharing with you stuff. It's really important for me. Perfect. Thank you very much, and have a great evening, and we speak soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Ciao, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.